The Research Foundation for SUNY. People, infrastructure, and technology make SUNY Research an engine for New York's innovation economy. www.rfsuny.org.
Funding for New York Now is provided by WNET. Additional funding provided by the Leo Cox Beach Philanthropic Foundation.
I love making my patients happy. It's giving love away. They're always telling me that I'm their favorite nurse. My residents are very grateful. It makes me want to keep going.
The Research Foundation for SUNY. People, infrastructure, and technology make SUNY Research an engine for New York's innovation economy. www.rfsuny.org.
Winner of a New York State Emmy for Best Political Program. This is New York Now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to New York Now. I'm Matt Ryan. My partner from the Times-Union, Casey Seiler, is out in Cleveland this week covering the Republican National Convention, and that is where we start our program. After a week filled with one negative story after another, Melania Trump's alleged plagiarized speech and the two-day saga that followed, Ted Cruz's speech in which he did not endorse Donald Trump, and because of that was practically booed off the stage, Donald Trump accepted the nomination to become the Republicans' presidential choice this November. Jimmy Vielkind of Politico New York and Joe Spector from Gannett will help me analyze the week for Republicans. But first, let's take a look at a portion of Trump's speech Thursday night.
Americans watching this address tonight have seen the recent images of violence in our streets and the chaos in our communities. Many have witnessed this violence personally. Some have even been its victims. I have a message for all of you. The crime and violence that today afflicts our nation will soon, and I mean very soon, come to an end. Beginning on January 20th of 2017, safety will be restored. The most basic duty of government is to defend the lives of its own citizens. Any government that fails to do so is a government unworthy to lead. It is finally time for a straightforward assessment of the state of our nation. I will present the facts plainly and honestly. We cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. So if you want to hear the corporate spin, the carefully crafted lies, and the media myths, the Democrats are holding their convention next week. Go there. But here at our convention, there will be no lies. We will honor the American people with the truth and nothing else. After 4 years of Hillary Clinton, what do we have? ISIS has spread across the region and the entire world. Libya is in ruins, and our ambassador and his staff were left helpless to die at the hands of savage killers. Egypt was turned over to the radical Muslim Brotherhood, forcing the military to retake control. Iraq is in chaos. Iran is on the path to nuclear weapons. Syria is engulfed in a civil war, and a refugee crisis now threatens the West. After 15 years of wars in the Middle East, after trillions of dollars spent and thousands of lives lost, the situation is worse than it has ever been before. This is the legacy of Hillary Clinton: death, destruction, terrorism, and weakness.
All right, as previously mentioned, I'm happy to be joined at the Reporters Roundtable by two Albany bureau chiefs at the Capitol, our friends and colleagues, Jimmy Vielkind from Politico New York and Joe Spector from Gannett. Gentlemen, I appreciate you coming in today. We just saw Mr. Trump's speech from Thursday night. Give me your initial reaction as you watched it at home in your living room.
Well, there was a lot of doom and gloom. I'm not the first person to say that. And actually, what I was thinking about watching the speech, thinking about his overall message, was about the Brexit vote. You know, it's very clear that the theme of Donald Trump's campaign, even now that he's fleshing out some policy proposals, withdraw from NAFTA, withdraw from NATO, sort of this America First strategy, a sort of isolationist, almost protectionist platform, is what reminded me of Brexit is that married to that is sort of this outsider's appeal, an attack on institutions and experts. Because immediately as these things have come forward, people have talked about how his narrative is built on a shaky foundation. He's talking about how people are not safe, how crime is rampant and out of control. That's statistically not true. He talks about the problems of undocumented immigrants, about how they are criminals. That statistically is not true. And so you have, on the one hand, a very calculated and apparently a appeal that is working and that is resonating, particularly with white working class voters. But on the other hand, you have sort of a divorce from the third party institutions and the experts, and I dare say the objective truth in politics. And so you look at this and you think, well, how can this be? As a member of one of those third party institutions, I think, how can this possibly be? And then you look at Brexit and what happened, and the famous quote of, the people are sick of experts. So, you know, I think that he cast out a very clear path forward for him. I think that what we're going to watch over the next few months, what I'm going to watch is whether the demographics of this country will support that pitch, and whether there is some kind of tipping point that he reaches, though the past year of primaries has shown that there apparently is no tipping point that he can reach, where this sort of cast starts to lose his base. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and you know, from New York's perspective, it's been interesting to watch the New York delegation over this week in Cleveland. You know, I mean, you talk about a few months ago, they were very leery of saying anything in support of Trump, and now you have the Senate Majority Leader John Flanagan, you know, other state leaders, Ed Cox, people who, you know, sort of were holding their cards close to the vest during, you know, the primary season. Now they're all on board with Trump here in New York, and they're looking to him. I mean, let's face it, New York is 2-1 Democrats to Republicans, and if Trump can help them in some of these battleground areas in New York, the Hudson Valley, Long Island, upstate. If he can get some voters out, Trump, I mean, they're hoping, well, first and foremost, that Trump can win New York, something that hasn't happened in a presidential race of Republicans
Although
since
a poll came out
1984.
this week showing him down double digits.
Yeah, but it was less than it had been, you know, and so, but, you know, statewide is one thing, but can Trump, you know, do well enough in some of these districts that we mentioned for the state Senate, key races
Very
there,
important.
congressional, can he do well enough where he could help them, you know, retain the state Senate, for example?
John Flanagan, the Senate Majority Leader, who, as you said, got a lot of airtime in the reaction shots with the New York delegation there, he must think so, right? If he's going to stand behind him like that.
I think that they have no choice, right? They know that he's on the top of the ticket. He is the standard bearer. And to the extent that a Republican voter on Long Island is going to go to the polls, they are going to be drawn by Trump. They're not going to be coming out, I think most people, for Campaign or for Tom Croce or for whomever. Pick some of the senators in more marginal contested districts. So what is his option? Is he going to divorce from his standard bearer, the person that he knows is going to be drawing voters to the polls? If he does that, he runs the risk of perhaps non-traditional Republican voters who are coming out for Donald Trump and might not be trickling down ballots.
Yeah, I think they feel like in some ways they're better off with Donald Trump than, say, some candidate who's not from New York. You know, you remember 2014, you know, Trump toured upstate. He was, you know, he kind of made some inroads there as he considered a run for governor. He developed contacts within the Republican Party. You know, Carl Palladino came on board.
He
You know, other
certainly helped
people
him,
who could help him, you know, along the way here.
A couple quotes from Twitter last night, which we all like to read. Meghan McCain, who of course is John McCain's daughter, quote, "The party I was part of is dead," unquote. Garry Kasparov, world chess champion, now is a chairman of the Human Rights Foundation. Quote, "I've heard this sort of speech a lot in the last 15 years, and trust me, it doesn't sound any better in Russian." Speaking to what you were talking about earlier, there was a lot of doom and gloom, and not something you hear a lot of in a nomination speech like
well,
this.
the standard bearer of the Republican Party is, you could argue, isolationist, right? Wants to withdraw from the world. He is protectionist. He wants to withdraw from sort of free trade agreements. He's talking about a message that is targeted, not as Mitt Romney was targeted toward more of an entrepreneur class, about a message of empowering entrepreneurship and empowering business and getting government off the backs of business. He is talking to the white working class. And, you know, he has found a segment of the voting population that has not been well served in large part by Democrats and Republicans for the last, take your pick, 10, 15, 20 years. And he is arguing that he can throw it all out and do something different. So the Republican Party, which has had, you know, at least consistent themes in its platform for the last 40, 50, 60 years, those themes have been upended, right? And so people like Meghan McCain, people like, you know, John Kasich are looking at this and saying, this is what, I don't know what this is. He is the Republican nominee, but this is not the traditional Republican Party.
Yeah, you saw a quick contrast last night. You know, Democrats coming out saying, you know, we're going into their convention. So first and foremost, we'll see what kind of bump Trump gets coming out of this.
And if some of those people like Jimmy was talking about come on board, like a John Kasich or like an Elise Stefanik talking locally.
Sure. And then, you know, now we go into the Democratic convention where they're saying, you know, we're going to have a more positive tone. It's going to be an upbeat tone. We're going to talk about, you know, bringing the country together rather than divided. And we'll see, you know, what message going into the fall is going to resonate with voters.
You know who has proved to be a very good attack dog on Donald Trump has been Elizabeth Warren, the senator from Massachusetts. A lot of the liberals would like to see her get the VP slot, but from what we've been reading early this week, you know, by the time this airs in some places, the VP selection may have already taken place, but it doesn't look like Hillary's leaning towards her. Maybe Tim Kaine, former senator from Virginia, Tom Vilsack, Ag Secretary from the state of Iowa. So that's going to be a big decision. Are those guys going to really attack Trump like a Warren would?
Well, I don't necessarily know. I think that those nominees bring a sense of stability, credibility. Of course, Senator Kaine comes from a swing state, Virginia.
Safe picks.
You know, Labor Secretary Tom Perez would be the first Latino to be on a major
Western
party
New York.
ticket. That's right, Buffalo native. But there are plenty of attack dogs who will come out of the woodwork against Trump, including, and perhaps none as aggressive as Andrew Mark Cuomo.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, they came out with the list the other day of who the speaking roles at the Democratic convention, and Cuomo's right there. Mayor Bill de Blasio, you know, somewhat a surprise in that de Blasio has, hasn't had the greatest relationship with the Clinton folks. He wasn't quick to come out and endorse her. But nonetheless, Jimmy made the point, you know, Cuomo's been very strong in his remarks about Trump and, you know, touting what's going on in New York, the $15 minimum wage, you know, same-sex marriage. All those things, you know, offer Cuomo a national platform at this convention. The question will be, you know, what kind of role does he have? Does he have a primetime speaking speech or not?
And of course, he's been in the news for things that Hillary Clinton would not necessarily want to highlight as far as some of the ESD news. And Jimmy, let's move to that here. We got a couple minutes left. ESD did not follow up on its promise to talk about, we're talking about Solar City here earlier this week.
Right, as we all turn attention to Cleveland and then to Philadelphia and the national campaign, there still are ongoing state and federal probes here in New York. They focus on economic development spending upstate. So two things happened this week. On Thursday, Empire State Development approved $685 million in funding. Most of that's going to go through SUNY Poly's Fort Schuyler Management Corporation to build a chip fab in Utica, which is going to be utilized by the Austrian company AMS. The other thing that happened was the Public Authorities Control Board, that very obscure yet very, very powerful board, met again. And some of the viewers might remember in May when it met and it approved $485 million for the Buffalo Solar City factory being built by SUNY Poly. When that money was released, ESD and Fort Schuyler promised to give regular updates. This meeting happened, there was no update, and some of the legislators who comprised the Public Authorities Control Board were concerned.
Yeah, I mean, and
Grumbling.
they also, Empire State Development on Thursday approved $78 million for the Rochester Photonics Center. But again, Matt, as you mentioned, you know, this all comes under the cloud of the investigation by U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara. And so now Cuomo's office has another layer of oversight. They put in their own counsel, so to speak, investigator Bart Schwartz to sign off on all of these contracts. And, you know, what we're watching for is what impact the investigation has on the release of this money. You know, are projects going to be stalled? What role does SUNY Poly have in all of this stuff? You know, they've been the focal point of all of this. It's all under their umbrella. You know, how much is that going to be controlled by SUNY Poly going forward, or whether it be the Cuomo administration? So, I mean, these are all key issues on huge projects. I mean, we're talking about the biggest projects in upstate New York.
Real quickly, we ran out of time here. This has been a big week news-wise, but of course we had the crane collapse on the Tappan Zee Bridge. Joe, you covered that area down in the lower Hudson Valley. Miraculously, no major injuries.
Again, I mean, this is one of Cuomo's, you know, it's his top, you know, development project, you know, in the country, right? The new Tappan Zee Bridge, and wow, this crane fell right across the current bridge, and knowing that bridge, I mean, it happened at noon, and the fact that nobody was really hurt bad or killed, it was just remarkable.
It is. One final thing, Joe, you also cover Binghamton in the Southern Tier. They did have a bit of big good news for them this week.
Yeah, Dick's is opening a big distribution plant down in the Southern Tier, you know, 400-something jobs. You know, Southern Tier is no secret. I mean, that's an area that is in dire need of economic development and new jobs. But, you know, that wasn't without controversy in and of itself. One of the Dick's family members, Kim Myers, is the Democratic candidate for Congress down there, and it was quickly criticized, the announcement by Claudia Tenney, the Republican congressional candidate there, saying that this is a political move in a year, an election year.
All right, well, both you guys are headed to the city of brotherly love to follow the Democratic convention. We wish you well and Godspeed, and thanks for coming today. Jimmy Vielkind of Politico New York and Joe Spector from Gannett. Thanks. All right, time now for this week's New York Now poll question. Do you believe the Republican National Convention was a success? Let us know by logging on to our website, nynow.org. Last week we asked, which national political convention are you most interested in watching? And 57% said the Republicans. Many people explaining their vote, including Steve in the Spa City. The usually boring GOP convention is interesting, with the Donald and Rudy. Hillary is 8 years too late. Linda in Greenfield Center, I will probably watch both Republicans just for the entertainment. And finally, Maggie in Malta says she was looking forward to the GOP convention the most, saying, want to see how the elites handle their rejection. They may cry in their champagne. We'd love to hear from you this coming week. Let us know how you feel by going to nynow.org. While you're there, you can watch any of our past programs, and you can follow links to us on Facebook, Flickr, and Twitter, where our handle is @nynow_PBS. You'll also want to, when you have some time, listen to the podcasts Casey Seiler and Karen DeWitt have produced from Cleveland, interviews with Western New York Congressman Chris Collins, GOP Chair Ed Cox, and Carl Palladino, just to name a few. And finally, you can also catch up on the latest political news by going to the Capitol Confidential blog at timesunion.com. The strength of New York's fruit and vegetable crop doesn't lie with the state's farmers, but with their tiny assistants, pollinators. They have been in decline in recent years, so the state has created a pollinator task force to determine what's happening to the bees. Our Jenna Flanagan reports.
Agriculture is a $3.5 billion industry in New York. With over 35,000 farms, food producers need as much help as they can get to produce an abundant crop. However, some say a key component in fruit and vegetable farming is experiencing a population decline, causing the state to create a task force to study the health of pollinators.
Well, in order for us to get apples, we need cross-pollination. We need to have in the blossom is both the male and female parts, so in theory it can take care of itself, but it doesn't work that way. You need to have some pollen grains from a different variety of apple land on the blossom for the variety you're talking about in order to have the act of pollination.
Peter Tenike is a lifelong apple farmer. His family business, Indian Ladder Farms, has been producing New York's signature crop from the Capital District for a century, making Tenike something of an agricultural cupid. Flowers, he says, are more than just pretty. They're a working part of the plant, and he needs honeybees to facilitate reproduction.
The pollen grains come down, they go down the tube, and the second act is fertilization. That when the pollen grain meets the ovary inside there, you create a seed. So the more pollen grains that come down, the more ovaries are fertilized and the more seeds you have, and they produce hormones which attract the food resources that gives me a nice big apple.
But Tenike, like a lot of other farmers, rents commercial bees to fertilize his flowers. So, with the number of dead honeybees increasing, President Obama directed the Federal Department of Agriculture to study the problem and each state to form a pollinator task force. State Agriculture Commissioner Richard Ball is leading the local effort.
There's stress factors in the environment, climate change, does that play a role here? Is it pesticides? Is it fungicides? Is it the varroa mite, which is a very significant problem for bees, an actual pest of bees? Is it disease? Is it lack of good forage? And stress? How are we managing these bees? And what's the effect on wild bees? And what do we know about wild pollinators? We know about the hives that we see in someone's backyard. What about the wild pollinators? What's the effect on them of all these things? And so we really quickly, I think, identified that it was a lot of things going on here. And so all the more important to come up with a plan that we could implement quickly and as we go forward identify.
The first thing that became clear was the need to better understand the problem. So the task force turned to the team at Cornell University's Dice Lab for honeybee research in Ithaca.
There is a problem right now in terms of pollinators potentially not having the populations that they typically have and providing the services that we in New York need for our agricultural crops.
McCart says every year, 50% of the honeybee population is lost. Since honeybees are the main pollinator in New York, I donned a beekeeper suit and got a closer look at the agriculture industry's main power player with honeybee expert and Dice Lab researcher Emma Mullen.
So there are several species of bumblebees in New York, and there's only one species of honeybee in New York.
Oh.
And that's this one here.
She says honeybee colonies can include up to 40,000 individuals, but they can be plagued by disease and pests.
So varroa mites are probably the leading cause of death for honeybees here in New York.
Okay.
It's different from something called colony collapse disorder, which is often mentioned.
Yeah.
So colony collapse disorder is a very specific syndrome where you don't have adults in the colony, but you'll still have a queen, you'll still have brood, and you'll still have food stores. And normally, if there's no bees to protect the food stores, they'll get robbed by other insects. But with colony collapse disorder, nothing is coming and eating that food. So it's almost like there's something in there that other insects know is not good to eat, but we're not sure what it is.
Dice Lab researcher Scott McCart says they're still studying what, if any, pesticides are adding to the problem. He says just because a foreign chemical is present in a colony doesn't make it dangerous. They're also studying the larger pollinator population, which includes over 100 different species, such as wasps, moths, and even hummingbirds. To improve their population numbers, the state has allotted the Pollinator Task Force $500 million to determine how we can better support these working New Yorkers. Senator Tom O'Mara sits on the Senate Committee of Agriculture and is a member of the Pollinator Task Force. He says the states need to work together.
By no means an issue that's unique to New York State. It's been seen all over the country and all over the Western Hemisphere, to my knowledge, that we've seen these problems. So I know that Cornell researchers are involved with researchers at other institutions across the country in working on different approaches to the research to try to find a cause.
Back at Indian Ladder Farms, Tenike says improving our land use is a good first step in increasing the pollinator population.
The important part is to build up a population of native flowers other times of the year than the middle of bloom, so that there's something going on at other times to keep these populations alive year-round.
All right, that was Jenna Flanagan reporting, and that will do it for us. We leave you today with video from the annual Adirondack Challenge up in Hamilton County, where Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul got to feel exactly how cool the water in the Indian River was during the whitewater rafting. I'm Matt Ryan. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on your local PBS station.
There's a controversy swirling about how you ended up in the water. What happened there?
Well, we're very competitive, and everyone in my raft was really pushing hard, and we hit a certain rapid, probably a hydraulic, and I went over the side.
Funding for New York Now is provided by WNET. Additional funding provided by the Leo Cox Beach Philanthropic Foundation.
The Research Foundation for SUNY. People, infrastructure, and technology make SUNY Research an engine for New York's innovation economy. www.rfsuny.org.
I work in the highway department. It's not about patching a pothole or cutting the grass. It's about creating a better quality of life for the residents of the community. We take pride in what we do. I was born in this community. I was raised in this community, and I'm proud to provide